Let's explore some mysteries of the sonnets. When were they written? It is hard enough to date the authorship of Shakespeare's plays, but the sonnets are particularly hard to pin down. In 1598, Francis Mears provided the first contemporary account referring to Shakespeare's sugared sonnets circulating among his private friends. There's no indication as to how many were being circulated, though we do know Shakespeare was busy writing sonnets into early plays like Love's Labour's Lost and Romeo and Juliet. The opening chorus of Romeo and Juliet is a sonnet, as are Romeo and Juliet's first words to each other. Two sonnets were published in 1599 in a collection of poetry called The Passionate Pilgrim. Strangely, they were published alongside many others attributed to him in the book, which were definitely not his. Perhaps this helped motivate him to publish a set of his own. But the first complete set of sonnets, all 154 of them, quite a large set by standards of the time, were not published until 10 years later in 1609. Consequently, we don't know when most of them were written or whether Shakespeare sought to continually improve his sonnets over the years. Is A Lover's Complaint a capstone to the sequence? The 1609 complete publication of the sonnets concludes with a long poem called A Lover's Complaint, which is written from a woman's perspective. This strange poem is the subject of authorship dispute. Our edition does not include the poem, but many collections do. We have plenty of lit to study this semester, so we can put this concern aside. However, it is related to a more vital concern, and that is, did Shakespeare participate in the publication? We know that Thomas Thorpe published the sonnets in 1609. On the frontispiece, he thanks Mr. W.H. as the begetter of these ensuing sonnets. Did Thorpe literally get the sonnets from W.H., or did W.H. instead inspire or patronize their authorship? 1609 was a plague year in London when the theaters were closed for months, so he could have used the income then. In that case, perhaps he even proofed the first prints. We have no original manuscripts of Shakespeare or other evidence to inform us. Thus, the next question, are the sonnets in the order that Shakespeare intended? Since we don't know his role in the publication, we can't be sure if they are ordered exactly the way he wished. There are certainly general groupings. The first 126, for example, appear to be written to a man. And subgroupings. The first 17 all urge the man to marry and produce heirs. Nevertheless, through history, some editors, believing Thorpe pilfered the sonnets, actually have attempted to reorder them. Our book presents the original publication order, and we will skip around thematically as we sample them rather than read them one after the other. Who is the young man? The sonnets appear deeply personal, and much has been written about the personas or characters which inhabit them. While most sonnets do not explicitly mention the gender of the beloved, many are written to a young man rather than the traditional unattainable woman, and that was the tradition that Shakespeare had inherited from Petrarch and Sidney. Tons of ink has been spilled on the identity of the young man, or men. Much has been made of the dedication on the front page of the sonnets, written by Thomas Thorpe. To the only begetter of these ensuing sonnets, Mr. W.H., all happiness, and that eternity promised by our ever-living poet. Who is Mr. W.H.? Possibly it was a young aristocratic patron. In many sonnets, the poet refers to the love object as you instead of thou, as though the person was of a higher class. Shakespeare dedicated a long narrative poem, Venus and Adonis, to a man with the reversed initials, Henry Wriothesley, Earl of Southampton. Another possibility is William Herbert, 3rd Earl of Pembroke, who is very generous in his patronage of poets like Ben Jonson. But even if Pembroke is W.H., we don't have any idea what role he played in Shakespeare's life. For that matter, we cannot be sure that the poems with male references in the sequence are even to the same person at all. That is, if he was even a real person. This leads to another question. Was Shakespeare gay? Well, does it matter? No. But the extreme adoration of the youth naturally raises this question. In Shakespeare's own day, some same-sex acts were punishable by death. However, homosexuality as a term, or sexual identity even as a concept, did not exist. Also, strongly bonded friendships among males were common and even necessary for social advancement. Male friendships could include protestations of love, physical closeness, and a shared bed. Fortunately, settling the "was Shakespeare gay" question is in no way necessary to enjoying these amazing love poems in all their many variations. Who was the Dark Lady? A dark lady inhabits sonnets 127 to 152. She is dark complected and has dark eyes and hair in a culture that considers fairness, lightness the ideal. Though she is dark like Hermia of A Midsummer Night's Dream, what is more notable is how the speaker of the poem regards her with disgust, calling her my female evil and my bad angel. What is more, the fair young man of the sonnets, called the better angel, also seems to be involved with her. The identity of the Dark Lady has mystified academics for years. Many historical identities have been proposed for her, but there is no consensus at all. While these mysteries are intriguing, they must not cause us to ruin the sonnets by narrowing in on a biographical interpretation. These poems absolutely explode with possible meanings. Nowhere in the course will you be more entitled at arriving at your own interpretations. I've given you a Google form exercise to complete for credit. Please do so now. The answers will be shared with everyone. Thank you for listening.